like I mentioned, that all markets have their own little rules and pros and cons. Some are more flexible than others. When we were looking at US markets, many of the markets, like NASDAQ, had quarterly reporting. And for a small company, that's a big overhead
Yes,
you basically finish one quarterly report and start the next one. It's a pretty
yes.
brutal schedule. Whereas in Frankfurt, we had annual audited reports, and then half a year later, you did just management reports. And that in itself was still a big piece of work. And one of the things that you sold us on with the OTC QX was the fact that we could use the same reporting structure that we were already using in Frankfurt, and then get access to the American market. So is that sort of, have I articulated that right?
Callum, that is exactly the point, exactly. And I think for particularly for European companies, that's been important. And what we would do from the U.S. side is just make sure. Well, we from a regulatory perspective, OTC markets is regulated by FINRA and the SEC. So, as part of their regulatory obligation, they need to make sure that they're not only reporting in their home country, uh, the same standards that their home market is requiring. That's it. But it has to be in English as well. And they have to post that information in the US. So it's very simple versus going on to NASDAQ or the NYC American or the New York Stock Exchange. Again, I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do, but you just have to be prepared. You have to be situated so that you can meet those expectations of filing with the SEC and doing that every quarter. Because it's not only, as you well know, it's not only about putting out your quarterly report. It's like, what are the expectations about the next quarter, and how do you give projections, and do I do quarterly conference calls? If I'm putting out a press release, should I do that? I mean, there's so much that goes into filing quarterly. You just have to make sure it's worth it. And again, for companies, some at the right positioning, it is worth it, but for
Mhm.
others, use the local market, trade local, list local, trade global is the concept, right? So take baby steps to get your story out. And when you're ready, whenever that time is, you can step up when it's the right time and deal with the added expense. And of course, I didn't talk about Sarbanes-Oxley. Where they're also in the U.S. When you're filing with the SEC and you're listed on a traditional exchange, there are some costly Sarbanes-Oxley related regulatory issues. And by that, I mean, you have to disclose how you're tracking internal finances and revenues and things like that. I mean, there's a lot to Sarbanes-Oxley. I mean, I'm just saying you just
Yeah,
have
yeah.
companies just have to be careful. So yeah, you exactly pointed it out. Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely something for Vebleners to be aware of when they're sitting on boards, and boards get excited about this idea. And look, I think there's huge credibility that comes from being a public company, without any doubt. But it is a huge overhead, and I think for a lot of small companies, we're going through a listing with the SEC at the moment, and it's it's interesting. In fact, I might have to pull you into some of these conversations. You can probably spare us some time.